Hello, welcome to Worm Watts, where we harness the God-given power of compost worms to transform organic waste into amazing living fertilizer. Now today, we've got a jar here. You may be wondering what we are up to. Well, we are actually working on feeding the worms. And we're not actually going to be seeing the worms today, but we're going to be preparing the food that they will be eating. Now, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that at the heart of the worm bin is actually a microscopic super being known as a microbe, whether that be fungus, whether that be bacteria or a bacterium. These are actually the powerhouses behind the worm bin, and they're actually what the compost worms actually devour. So today we're going to be working on Bokashi, which is a form of fermenting your food scraps, and we're going to be doing that in a very different scale than most people are used to. We're going to be doing it in a mason jar. So usually the process of Bokashi would involve a 5-gallon bucket, kind of like this one right down here. But on a smaller scale, we'll be able to, I'm hoping we'll be able to observe a little bit more of what's going on and really have a little bit more control over what's going into the bin or into the jar in this case, and being able to have a bit more recall of some of those specific items. So I'm really excited to take you along with me as we work on this. Now, typically in a Bokashi bin setup, you would actually have nested bins. So nested buckets. You'd have one 5-gallon bucket sitting inside of another 5-gallon bucket. And the bucket inside of the outer bucket, so the inner bucket, would have holes drilled into the bottom of it that would allow the effluent or the excess liquid to drain off of that bucket. So as it fermented, as the food scraps in that inner bucket fermented, the excess liquids would drip out into the bottom bucket. Well, in this case, because we're using a mason jar, we're not going to have that double bucket kind of system. We're not going to have that nested bucket kind of system. So I'm actually going to be experimenting today not only with the smaller scale, but also with using one container to do Bokashi. And that is something that I've read a little bit about. I've seen other people who have had some positive experiences with that, but I've also seen other people for whom it has not worked out well and they've had a smelly mess. So the fun part of today is that we get to see Bokashi, we get to load the food scraps in here, and the mystery is going to be whether it's going to work as we expect it to. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get you an update on where we're at right now. I've gone ahead and put wood chips into the bottom, I would say the bottom quarter of this mason jar. And what I'm hoping we'll do is we'll go ahead and inoculate that with some of this sugar-saturated Lactobacillus serum. We'll go ahead and put some of that in here as well. And then we'll go ahead and start adding our food scraps in. My goal is that we'll go ahead and load it up and we'll pack the food scraps down into this jar, and then we'll go ahead and seal it off and we'll leave it like that for 14 days. Now, there are a few things I would keep in mind as we do this. One, because of the wood chips are going to have some natural bacteria on them, hopefully that doesn't interfere too much with this experiment. Admittedly, even with a 5-gallon bucket, there's latent bacteria and microorganisms on the inside of that bucket, so we'll see how it works overall as opposed to using 5-gallon buckets. But I'm going to go ahead and open this jar up so that we can go ahead and add in the Lactobacillus serum into here. I'm going to add it pretty thoroughly so that there's a nice, good population of microbes, of the Lactobacillus microbes in the wood chips, and then we'll go ahead and start adding the food scraps in there and adding more of the Lactobacillus serum intermittently between the layers. All right, so I've got it open. Stick this in there. Got a fair bit there. And I'm just going to go ahead and drip that on in all around. And that's done. It's empty. So we're gonna get another one. I want the bottom part to be pretty well saturated with the microbes we're trying to select or trying to propagate here. And I'm gonna go one more time. I think 3 should do it. Who knows, maybe I'll go for 4. Just because those wood chips are really gonna absorb. Gonna absorb a fair bit of this liquid. All right, so that seems good to me, at least for now. So we've gone ahead and saturated, I wouldn't say it's fully saturated, but we've gone ahead and added a good bit of the Lactobacillus serum to these wood chips. And now let's go ahead and start adding in the food scraps. So one of the first scraps I wanted to try, sorry our video cut out there for a little bit, but you'd be deceived if you thought that this was actually, if you went by the label on this, we've actually got a bunch of chia seeds down there. So we're just gonna go ahead and open that up. And then we'll go ahead and pour those on in there. Oh, whoops. What a miss. All right, there we go. All right, so I lost a good few chia seeds, but that is okay. All right, so we'll just work with what we have, which is a fair few chia seeds, and you can see that they've well distributed throughout the jar, so that's good. I'm gonna go ahead at this point and add in a little bit more of our serum. We wanna make sure that all of the food items are really getting distributed in there. So, or all of them are getting a healthy dose of the serum. So this helps to make sure that that is the case, that nothing's getting left behind. Now, admittedly, this is the super saturated serum, so we don't need a lot of this, honestly, but I guess I'm going a little bit overkill on this. All right, so we've got that in there. Now for our next layer of food scraps. All right, so next I've actually got this little Jello container of potato eyes. So we had a bag of potatoes that's just sitting, and it's gonna still be used, but I went ahead and took the eyes off of the potatoes. They were starting to look around, and so we went ahead and took the eyes off. We'll toss those in there. Those will be something interesting to see break down. And then in here, I've got a banana peel. This is our usual indoor bucket for food scraps. This one contains our vegetable scraps. So I'm gonna go ahead and I've got pieces of cantaloupe rind that we're gonna put in there, and as you can see, I'm pushing them down. Bokashi is a form of fermentation, which is an anaerobic process. So we're just trying to squeeze out as much of the air as we can. And then, let's see, what else do I have in here? I've also got a lot of the rind there, and then I have some bell pepper in here. Just tearing it out, actually. All right, we got a bit of bell pepper. Looks like we have maybe some mold there on it. Sorry, I'm zoomed in too close, so you can't really see it. So I'll go ahead and put that in there. Oh yeah, this puppy started to mold, so no problem there. The Bokashi can handle that. All right, so we've got a nice little array of various food items. We've got some bell pepper, we've got the rind, we have the chia seeds, a lot of chia seeds. And now I've got some more stuff as well that I've been saving for this very moment. All right, so in here I have some meat, some raw meat, which the reason I added that is because this is Bokashi, and one of the neat things about Bokashi, one of the reasons I started doing Bokashi was because Bokashi allows you to quote unquote compost just about anything. And so I feel like adding in meat is a really good way to really appreciate that. And then I've got some cooked rice. So I'm going to, before I go too much further, I'm going to add on more of the serum, especially to the meat, because you do want to be generous in making sure that the meat gets the, sorry about my finger being in there, so that the meat gets the microbes on it, so that it can also be exposed to those beneficial microbes, and so that you don't have the wrong kinds of bacteria really starting to flourish. And now, I'm just gonna dig in here. I've got some more rice. Hopefully it'll come out. All right, got some more rice. And as I pack that down, you can see how nice and compact we're getting. We're eliminating most of the air, which is fantastic. And then I've also got some cantaloupe guts, some cantaloupe innards, and we've got that nice sugary juice in there that'll really help to feed the microbes as this ferments. All right, so I am overflowing now with rice and with cantaloupe innards. So I'm gonna just stuff those down by hand. Whew. All right. Getting nice and messy. All right, so now with that done, I'm gonna top it off with another round of the lactic acid bacteria serum, or Lactobacillus serum. All right, so here's our Lactobacillus serum. Going to get a nice healthy dose of that. And we'll just pour that over the top there. Boom. All right. And I think that will do it. We'll do one more. Okay. And I think we're good. So I'm gonna put the lid back on this. And one thing I would like to point out is that I'm using mason jars. And the reason that I'm using a mason jar for this, as opposed to maybe another jar in general, is just on the safe side. I know that mason jars are frequently used for fermentation and canning and other types of storage, so I'm not really too concerned about the pressure buildup in here. Though I will acknowledge that I did pack this thing pretty solidly, so hopefully there's enough room for things to ferment. But I'm gonna go ahead and close up this jar. Look at that mess. All right. Glad to have a table that can take it. All right, so that is our jar. And we are going to leave this jar now for a couple of weeks. 2 weeks is the recommendation. I don't know that it'll need that much in these temperatures. It's about 90 degrees in this little workshop, but I will go ahead and seal that up and leave it for about that time, and then we'll come back and check on it, and hopefully we'll be able to tell by the smell that it's done. For what it's worth, I recently did this with coffee grounds, with spent coffee grounds, and the interesting part about that was that the smell was not a giveaway, and I'm not sure if maybe that experiment did not go as planned or what, but hopefully this one will go a little bit more smoothly. I think that the plenitude of sugars will help. So awesome. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for fermenting with me, or beginning the fermentation process with me. We'll check on this. Probably we'll check on this maybe in a week, see if we notice any differences. You can already tell though that the wood chips are nice and packed down, which is really nice. So that's good. Yeah, we'll check on this in about a week and see if we notice anything different. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be looking to feed this to one of our worm bins. So really excited about that. Thank you for joining, and we'll catch you in the next one.